Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. Today I am bringing you what is, in my opinion, the best Tier 8 battleships, and this is, of course, in a list format. And I decided to throw in the premium battleships because Tier 8 is where you can get some really good or some really not so good premium battleships. Now, again, this is all 100% my opinion, and it's funny the way I did this. It's one spot short of being a top 10 list, so it's really kind of a top 9 list, and you'll see why as we get further down into the list. And again, this is 100% my opinion. You know, if one of the ships toward the end of the list works well for you, then, you know, more power to you. This is just, you know, my experience with these ships, and this is the order that I have put them in. And I decided to put premiums on the list because, one, like I said, you can get some really good and some really bad premiums at Tier 8, and two, because Tier 8, it's a rough spot for mini battleships. It's a rough challenge for the developers to balance a Tier 8 battleship because you can't make them too powerful because they can see, you know, Tier 6 battles. But at the same time, you have to give enough power to where they can actually do something in a Tier 10 battle because they can get up tier to Tier 10. And with the current way the game is now, if you're in a Tier 8, you're going to be getting up tier to Tier 10 probably over half of the games that you play in. So I decided to just throw them in there because, one, for all of these ships on this, all the premium ships on this list, I've done a review for them, and I believe I own every Tier 8 premium battleship that's currently out right now. I think so, to my knowledge at least. There may be one or two that I don't have, but I'm pretty sure I have most, if not all, of the Tier 8 premiums. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into the number 9 spot, which is the British battleship, techline battleship, Monarch. Now, Monarch is at 9 for a few reasons. One, its health pool is about 9,000, 10,000-ish HP under the kind of average health for Tier 8 battleships. I mean, you have the Bismarck, which has 69,000 HP, then you have something like the Massachusetts, which has 66,000 HP, so it's about 6,000 to 9,000 HP under the health pool of the other Tier 8 battleships. And it doesn't get the lull hill that the Lion and the Conqueror get. So that's number one. Number two, its armor, 32 millimeters of armor all the way around without any sort of special or modified heel. Number three, it's got 15-inch guns. It's got 15-inch British AP guns. And for those of you that don't know, the British AP has a shortened fuse, so you can't really get citadel. I mean, you can get citadels, but you'll be getting less citadels on enemy battleships because of the shortened fuse time. You'll still get some pretty good pins, but again, the guns are also 15-inch. Now, you do get 9 guns, which is pretty nice, and they do have a 25-second reload time, which is also pretty nice, so your DPM will be higher than most of the other Tier 8 battleships because, you know, you do have 9 guns that reload in 25 seconds. And the HE only has a 35% chance of fire. Now, I don't like battleship HE spam, so while that's not a big deal to me, I know it's a big deal to a lot of people that play the British battleship line because of that. And again, it's like, why is this thing so underpowered at Tier 8, and then they don't even give it like 35, I think it's 35-36% chance of fire. Now, that's about average for battleships at Tier 8, but it's like the whole line has very good chance of fire on the HE shells, and then you get to the Monarch where it's just normal, and it's kind of like, what? This doesn't follow the trend that the line has. And it also, okay, so that's the bad things about it, and now let's go into the good things about it. One, it does have the British underwater citadel, so unless you get hit by a torpedo, you're not going to get a citadel, and that's a joke. You can't get citadel hits on torpedoes, I don't think you can, to my knowledge. I don't play destroyers that much, so I'm pretty sure you can't get citadel hits on torpedoes. Now, and it also has a really good concealment. My Monarch, I just bought it back, and my captain doesn't have concealment expert on him, so, you know, I don't get that boost to my concealment. and my concealment range is 12.7 kilometers. That's ridiculous. So I can imagine with concealment expert on there, that's going to go down even lower, which is a bit crazy, but it is what it is. So you have a very stealthy battleship with a 25-second reloads on 15-inch guns, but the British AP guns. So I can kind of see what they were going for with this one. You know, you get a bit sneaky, sneak up on an unsuspecting broadside battleship or cruiser, and you can get some good damage in. But in my opinion, there's a lot more going against this ship than there is going for it. So that's why it's at number 9. Moving on to number 8 is the French battleship Richelieu. Now, Richelieu was actually the first French battleship that I played that wasn't the Dunkirk. I got it in when they were doing those preview containers. I got lucky and I got Richelieu in my first one. I'm like, holy crap, that's, thank you, RNG Jesus, for finally giving me some love. However, the guns on it are laughably inaccurate in terms of the dispersion. However, it does have really good AA. It's fast, but with the setup that it has, there's no turrets in the back, so if you get flanked, you're kind of boned. It does have okay secondaries. It can kind of, swat at destroyers until they leave you alone if you build for it. But in my opinion, the guns are just so inconsistent that you have to get pretty suicidally close to do good consistent damage to it, which to an enemy ship such as a battleship. But the thing about the Richelieu is, of course, it does have 2 turrets. It has 4 guns per turret, so you got all 8 guns up front, so you can battle tank for days. However, again, 32 millimeters of armor all the way around, so once those ships switch to HE, you're gonna have a bad day. But with the engine boost, you can get out of there pretty fast, and if you want to, you can go into torpedo mode with the engine boost and, at least get 1 kill. It's just, I don't know, it's weird. It has a huge range too. I think it's like 24 kilometers, but you probably won't be hitting anything at range due to the dispersion of the guns. And the reason this is in front of Monarch is because at least it's consistent with the line. The design isn't, because it's weird. You go from the Lion, which has freaking 16 guns, to the Richelieu, which has just 8 and is a roided up Dunkirk, and then you go to the Alsace, which has 12 guns and a traditional turret setup. It's very strange in terms of that, but the velocity is still very good. It's got the engine boost, has the same armor layout. It's just, if the Monarch had kept the HE and maybe it got some type of, not the HE, the Monarch had kept the good chance of fire on the HE shells, and some sort of modified here, either with a faster cooldown, or maybe not the Law Hill where you can print yourself a new ship, but maybe something like that, getting up to that Law Hill, like maybe instead of recovering 60% of your health, you can recover something like 40 or 35% of your health. So that's why the Richelieu is in front of the Monarch. So moving on to number 7, we have our first premium ship, which is the Italian battleship, the Roma. And I know a lot of you guys, from my Premium Regrets videos, you have a special place in your heart for Roma because, you guys play rank and she does awesome in there. And as I have said before, at Tier 8, Roma is a very nice battleship. You have very nice concealments. Her turrets are crazy fast. I believe they do a 180 in something like 25 seconds. And her velocity on her guns are very, very good. So all that thrown together, you have a very stealthy battleship that can surprise enemies and catch them off guard. However, when you get up tiered in the Roma, it is a bit painful, because the dispersion on the Roma's guns is not great. It's kind of bad. It's actually worse than German dispersion, in my opinion. Now, that being said, like I said, the ship's fast, maneuverable, really stealthy, and when the guns bite into something armored, they do bite pretty hard. However, most of the times when you're being up tier to tier 10, one, you just don't have the range to stay, because the first 10 or so minutes of a tier 10 battle, it's a snipe fest. We all know that. So when you're in the Roma, you don't have the range, which, don't get me wrong, a lot of other tier 8s don't have the range to participate in the snipe fest of the first half of a tier 10 game. But the Roma, it's like, even when they get into your range, because of the dispersion, you probably aren't going to hit them. And when you do hit them, because of the velocity, you overpin stuff like cruisers for days. You hit right where the cruisers that are supposed to be, and because of the velocity, you're just going to overpin right through them. And on top of that, you have 15-inch guns, and 15-inch guns against Tier 10 ships. It's not... They just, they angle slightly, you're going to bounce. And I know, again, a lot of other Tier 8s have, well, actually only two, maybe three other Tier 8 ships, battleships have 15-inch guns, but, they don't have the same insane velocity that the Roma has, so you'll be overpinning in the Roma, you'll be hitting and doing pins in the other ships. And plus the Roma, her sides are very, very squishy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get what they're going for with the Roma. It's supposed to be a really good bow tanking. You go straight at them. You just keep bouncing shots off your bow, and when you close the distance, you use your superior speed and maneuverability and turret traverse to outflank them, and then you delete them. And I get that, but it's just like the way the guns are set up. It just makes life so much harder when you get up to a Tier 10 game. Now, since I made my initial Roma review, I have played her a bit more, and I am getting a better feel for her. And now, instead of me just saying she's a terrible ship, I say, she does really good at Tier 8, but when you get up to Tier 10, it's just really, really rough. So moving on to number 6 is the French premium battleship Gascon. Now, for all intents and purposes, Gascon is a mini Republic with the one turret in the front, one turret in the back, and good secondaries. It's got the same 32 millimeters of armor all the way around, except that, so they're pretty much the same in those regards, except that instead of having a 20-second reload, you have a 30-second reload, and 20-second in the Republic if you use the reload mod, and so it's 24-ish, 25 seconds before you use the reload mod in the Republic, and it's just 30 seconds flat in the Gascon. But still, she is a very fast, maneuverable battleship, and she can brawl fairly well if you come in angled steeply. And then, the ideal thing to do in the Republic and the Gascon is you want to somehow just get the jump on the enemy battleship, then punch that engine boost consumable, outrun their turrets, get to their sides, and delete them. That's how I brawl in the Gascon and the Republic. Now, the Gascon, the dispersion is of course worse than the Republic's. Republic's the Tier 10, so you can't really snipe in the Gascon. I mean, you can try, but you probably won't succeed very well because of the dispersion. That's why I say this ship is definitely meant to be a brawler. However, again, because there's 32 millimeters of armor all the way around, you're going to be taking hits from HE, and even AP is going to hurt you pretty dang bad. So, but she is probably, I wouldn't consider her a bad ship. I would consider her a more challenging to play ship. And again, a lot of these ships get up to Tier 10, and they have 32 millimeters of armor, and don't get me wrong, the Republic does have 32 millimeters of armor all the way around, but she has a much bigger health pool than the Gascon. So that's why the Gascon is on the latter half of the list. So moving on to number 5, and this is why I have 9 instead of 10 spots on this list, is the Key/Amagi. I put these two together because, I just recently got Key, and I've been playing her a lot recently, and it's just reminding me of an Amagi, but with AA and torpedoes. All intents and purposes, they're pretty much the same ship. There's a difference here or there, but I mean, they're pretty much the same ship. Get those 10 millimeter guns. The only difference between the Key and the Amagi is, of course, like I said, Key has better AA and torpedoes, and she's a bit slower than the Amagi. The Amagi, of course, has alright AA, doesn't have torpedoes. She has way more secondaries than the Key does, but I mean, they just feel so similar, and I play them similar. You get similar results in them. Amagi is a good ship. I enjoyed grinding through Amagi. It was actually the first Japanese battleship that I got to that I didn't feel like I was grinding through something. I was just kind of going with the flow. hanging back, using my guns and the very nice Sigma that the Amagi has. Now the key does have 1.7 versus Amagi's 1.8 Sigma. And I was using those guns just hanging back, doing what Japanese battleships do, firing over long distances, getting my snipe on, and yeah, I do that in key too. Now, of course, the dispersion's a bit worse in key. The Sigma's a bit worse in key, so I do try to get a little closer. And the torpedoes on the key, they aren't really offensive torpedoes. They are very much defensive torpedoes because they only have a 6-kilometer range. And I've used them on offense. They're kind of opportunistic torpedoes because say you're sailing to a cap and a cruiser or battleship just pops up and they're charging you. You can turn into them, get that really steep angle going on, and then pop your torpedoes off and laugh as you delete a battleship with torpedoes. And where they're positioned at on the ship, because they're positioned toward their stern, the angle for them is kind of awkward. It's weird because like the Tirpitz, her torpedoes are positioned in the middle, which is a very nice place to get your torpedoes off at, but the position of the torpedoes on the key is a bit strange. So moving on to number 4, which is the American battleship, the North Carolina. I cannot tell you guys how happy I was to get to the ship after getting through Colorado, because you finally have an American battleship that goes over 20 knots. And boy, by the time I got done with Colorado, I was ready to get some speed, because having a battleship that can only go 20 knots at Tier 7 when all the other nations are getting their fast battleships, that is rough. So North Carolina, 2.0 Sigma on Tier 8 battleship guns. That's nice. On 16-inch guns, that's really nice. And plus she has good AA, and again she can finally go 28 knots, which is glorious. Her secondaries, they're there. I mean, they do their job. I wouldn't recommend a secondary build on the North Carolina. And she is a bit squishy. That's when you start getting to more of that Iowa design. Because from the North Carolina to the Montana, it's essentially North Carolina's a small Iowa, and then the Montana is a large Iowa. So of course they all share the kind of squishy center, that being their citadel. And I had a lot of fun in North Carolina. It really pained me the day that I had to sell North Carolina because I just needed the credits. So again, if you want a very nice, I wouldn't snipe with her. I would play her kind of at medium range, because with 2.0 Sigma, yes, you could snipe, but if you get in close, you can have some really nice, not like 10 kilometers, like 15-ish kilometers. Don't hang back at X range, that's no fun. That 15, 14-ish kilometer range, really take advantage of that Sigma, because the closer you get, the better groupings you're going to get versus hanging in the back and sniping. So moving on to number 3, we have the American premium battleship, the Alabama. And the Alabama, in all intents and purposes, is a North Carolina, but with worse dispersion. She has 1.9 versus North Carolina's 2.0. And again, this is another case of it's got more AA, and it has a slightly lower Sigma, but she also has better torpedo protection than the NorCal. And again, I was very close to putting these two together, but because Alabama has better torpedo protection than the NorCal, I actually like to get in pretty close with Alabama. She does have worse Sigma, but it doesn't warrant going as close as I do with Alabama. I forgot who said, someone commented on one of the videos that they play Alabama as like a heavy cruiser, which is, yeah, that's a pretty good way if you want to play Alabama. She's much better at medium distance because, of course, like I said, she has that 0.1 less Sigma. You wouldn't think that would make that big of a difference, but you'd be surprised how much just a little bit of change in Sigma can make Sigma can make a difference. So moving on to number 2, we have the Bismarck /Tirpitz, another pair of ships that I put together. And this because the only difference between the Tirpitz and the Bismarck is the Tirpitz has torpedoes. That's the only difference between the Bismarck and the Tirpitz. In all other aspects, they are the same ship. So with the Bismarck and Tirpitz, you get very, very nice secondaries. You can get out to about 10 kilometers, 11-ish if you put on the secondary flag. And of course, I fully endorse a secondary build on the Bismarck and Tirpitz. And these two ships, gotta get adrenaline rush on these two ships because, oh my god, if you brawl with these ships, you know, lose some of your health, well, you lose a lot of your health because, again, you're going to be getting up tier to tier 10 in these ships. But the Bismarck and Tirpitz, these are two ships that I don't really care if I get up tiered in them because they are so good at brawling and closing the distance. These are two very, very fast ships. They have a top speed of 32.7 knots, 0.6 knots, somewhere in there. So these are very fast battleships. You can close the distance on other battleships. I mean, guys, all the tier 10 battleships, except the Republic, have a top speed of 30 knots. So you can chase them down if they're trying to run away from you. Now, would I recommend that? It depends on the situation. If they're out by themselves, go for it. Because these ships can just tank all day long. I mean, unless it's the Yamato, then you can't. But these two ships can battle tank all day long. Now, in terms of brawling, I would have to give the Tirpitz the award because she is the better brawler because, of course, she has torpedoes and the Bismarck does not. And that's always a nice, like I said, in the key, it's hilarious to torpedo another battleship with a battleship. I mean, it's hilarious. The chat usually explodes into lols when you do it. So moving on to the number 1 Tier 8 battleship. You guys should know what it is because it's the only one left. It's the American premium battleship, the Massachusetts. Like I said in Monday's video, I absolutely love this ship. It's refreshing to see a premium where it's actually different from the line, like totally different from the main line. Because, you know, the American battleship line is very accurate guns, very good AA, and they're usually good mid-range ships. Massachusetts has very inaccurate main battery guns. Her Sigma is 1.6, I believe, and she has very powerful secondaries. Now, granted, she's not OP because, of course, you do have 32 millimeters of armor all the way around, just like the Alabama. And with the current state of HE in the game, with, you know, the American light cruiser line just coming out and the frickin' 2 new Japanese destroyers that can outgun cruisers, you're going to be eating a lot of HE. And they did give her heal a 40-second cooldown, which is very, very nice. She also has, I believe, 46% torpedo damage reduction versus the Alabama's 54%. And she still retains her strong AA, which is good considering the carrier rework is actually, you know, on the horizon. So she has a lot going for her, but again, you know, her armor is pretty weak and she's pretty easy to sit it out, just like the NorCal and the Alabama. But it's just so much fun to just, you know, charge at ships in the Massachusetts, have an American battleship with really good secondaries. It's like having 2 Atlantis strapped to your side. It's amazing. And of course, you got to go full secondary build on this thing, and that will also buff your AA up to over 100. And yeah, I just love this thing. And I don't know of any premiums or any other ships that are coming out that will replace my love for this ship. Right now, this ship is competing to be my favorite ship in the game. I'm just enjoying the hell out of her. So again, guys, that was my list for the best Tier 8 battleships. Wow, my throat is dry. I've been talking for about 25 minutes straight now. So, again, all my opinion. Let me know down below, what do you guys think is the best Tier 8 battleship, premium and non-premiums? I'm pretty sure I covered all the premiums. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I mean, I'll Google it after this and add in some text here if I forgot a Tier 8 premium battleship. So, again, thank you all so very much for watching. If you liked the video, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. We are on our way to 500, which I'm really pumped about because we are over halfway there, and we could potentially be there next week. So hit that subscribe button if you want to help us get to 500. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch all of you in the next one.